Good morning, my name is Capaldo. It is Wednesday, May 24, 2023. Thank you for joining in. This morning I'm going to talk a little bit about Psalm 31 and continue with this idea of divine masculine, divine feminine, and just add some concepts to that. Proverbs 31 has to do really, I think, with the role of the divine feminine in bearing civilization and in driving society in what they do. And the woman, of course, can do a variety of things, not just the household. Right? So I'll just read a little bit and we'll go take it from there. The words of King Lemuel, an oracle that his mother taught him. So right there you're acknowledging oracle is really a teaching, it's a prophecy. And it's so his mother taught him divine wisdom. Now what he did with it is up to him, but you see the source of the divine wisdom is the divine feminine, it's the mother. O my son, O son of my womb, O son of my vows, do not give your vigor to women or your ways to what ruins kings. In other words, be focused on what your task is. Your task is basically to apply this divine wisdom for the betterment of society, to help people, to serve humanity, to help them come to Christ and grow in Christ and ascend spiritually to higher spiritual realms. That's really what your objective should be. And of course you have the divine feminine and the divine masculine that do it together. It's a team. It really should be a team effort. And this idea of the two souls that are welded together by the Creator, it's something that, when I first started reading more about creation and creation science, and this idea popped up of divine counterparts, it seemed a bit strange, like, what is this? Anything new. I mean, we're learning things, anything new can seem strange. But the more that you explore it, and I think you should, the more it makes sense that you've got a combination of divine masculine, divine feminine that are really a unit, a team of two souls brought together by Creator, and their job is really, it's not Hollywood romance, their job is really spiritual work, helping people be restored and to grow in the mind of Christ so that they can ascend into the higher spiritual realms, which really, we want to go as far as we can in our relationship with God, right? So that's really what the idea is, and it's a complicated one. It happens in different ways. People do different things with it, but it's kind of based on the idea of the two souls are in a state of something called, in Greek it's called hieros gamos, which is, it's like sacred union or sacred marriage. If you studied biology, there's the word gamete, that's related to gamos. Sacred marriage, sacred union, or initiation. It's sort of the period of the souls get to know each other. They find each other. They discover there is such a thing, and then they find each other, and then they figure out, they have to figure out what their work is, how they're going to do it, and when they're going to do it, and where they're going to do it. It's complex. It's something that bears individual study, but that's kind of the idea of the divine counterparts. And I thought maybe I could make it clearer by explaining a little bit a concept from the ancient world and other civilizations that is kind of like it. I mean, it's not really 100% overlap, but there are certain aspects of this ceremony that would remind you of the sacred initiation. And usually in English the word is called betrothal, and this came about, or it certainly was part of the Old Testament, where you have a stage of somehow the couple meets and they don't get married immediately. They have a period of betrothal where they're becoming familiar with each other, and they're supposed to spend time together one way or the other. The man is not supposed to go off to the army or something like that, for a long period of time. They spend time together, but they're not married yet. It's like it's more than an engagement and less than a marriage ceremony. And there's not, and in the 3D world, there's not, with the betrothal, there's not supposed to be intimacy until you have the final ceremony. You walk underneath the chuppah, it would be in the Hebrew tradition. And in Yiddish they have the word shtupa, so they say no kupa, no shtupa, right? But anyway, that's kind of the idea of betrothal from the ancient world, which is a little bit, the parallel is that it's this idea of, getting to know each other better. And usually betrothal would typically be something like a year. Now the Hieros Gamos is much different from that, it's longer than that. But it's just kind of a parallel to maybe orient you, and I think it's a very good thing to study on your own, rather than I try to explain it, because I'm not the soul that is the expert on this, right? I do my own things that I do. But I'm learning these things all the time, so it's not. I'm not in a position where where I can say I'm the expert on this, but I can sort of learn myself, and I can point you in a certain direction. So betrothal also exists in Russian culture as well. It's basically it has the same significance as it does in the ancient world, in the Hebrew, Old Testament times. That's this period of. You're doing more than dating, but you're doing even a little bit more than engaged. You're kind of super engaged, and then you get married eventually. And okay, so that's a little bit on that. I don't think I need to spend too much time on that. But anyway, the woman is the mother is saying, know what your real calling is, and it's not chasing around a lot of women, and it's not having a lot of drink. It's taking the wisdom and applying it and serving, bringing people to Christ. It is not for kings, O Lemuel, it is not for kings to drink wine, or for rulers to crave strong drink, lest they drink, forget what is decreed, and pervert justice for all the oppressed. It doesn't mean you never drink wine. People take verses out of context and they say, well, this is an absolute rule, no drinking wine. Drinking wine, I think you have to be careful. You have to really, if you're going to do it, it certainly has to be in moderation. And all alcohol, al-gul, we used to call it, but alcohol, it's an acquired taste. It's not something that you're natively born to like. It's so you learn to like it, and then people get all carried away with all the fancy French wines and all this stuff. And, they're good, in a way they're good, but they're not, it isn't really the epitome of health, put it this way. So it's just something that you have to be careful of, and that's the maternal wisdom here, showing the divine wisdom, giving kind of a, standards for how you can live in your calling, right? Lest they drink, forget what is decreed, forget all the teachings, forget the divine feminine wisdom, and people often ask the question. And pervert justice for all the oppressed. So you're not going to be able to reach the people you need to reach for Christ and for spiritual ascension and moving up in that way, if you get involved with a lot of drink and you don't help people, you don't serve humanity. And people often say, forget, lest they drink, forget what is decreed. So they forget their purpose, they forget why they were put here. And it's a great shame, because you see a lot of people like that, they have a calling, and then something happens and they kind of get waylaid, they just lose their way. I mean, they contribute some good things, but then they lose their way. Because of not paying attention to what is decreed, to the wisdom. And I often am asked the question, well, divine wisdom, why is it divine feminine wisdom? Why is it called that? Well, you have the divine masculine, divine feminine, and even in the text, all of the words that relate to wisdom, just grammatically, they're feminine. Like, kochma in Hebrew is feminine, and pistis in Greek is feminine, and sophia in Greek is feminine, and all of those words are feminine. And I think what the Spirit is telling us is that really the source of divine wisdom from the Creator is something called divine feminine, and divine masculine can be an excellent counterpart to that, by applying the wisdom to do creative things, to do productive things, to protect and to nourish and to nurture, and really to become the biggest supporter and fan of the divine feminine. And then that's it, then you have this kind of team, right? So Mama goes on, give strong drink to one who is dying and wine to those who are bitterly distressed. Let him drink, forget his poverty, and remember his misery no more. Well, if things are so far out of hand that it's a lost cause, you might let someone drink. But I mean, this basically the idea is not to do too much of it. Open your mouth, son, on behalf of those unable to speak, for the justice of all who are destitute. Open your mouth, judge righteously, plead the cause of the poor and needy. Well, we just saw an example recently of a very brave, courageous doctor who spoke out against vaccinations and apparently has been poisoned by the other side and has passed on. You know, he's so that's the example. That's an example of someone who knows something and has to speak. And this is what we need right now, to plead the case for the poor and the oppressed. Now, the poor and the oppressed doesn't always mean dollars and cents, although it certainly can mean that. But it's just the poor and oppressed of spirit, the downtrodden, the people who are exploited, the people who are taken advantage of. And of course, what has happened with this COVID and vaccinations and whatever it is the cabal is plotting, you know, for late 2024, whatever that's going to be. You know, this is something that people have to, now that we are mostly aware that there's something very wrong that went on with what they call COVID. People have to speak up. People, you know, it's just if you know, unless you want to basically, it is a matter really, at least spiritually, it is a matter of life and death. You know, it's you know, it's there are people who are, you know, that there are people who are just going to follow no matter the authorities, whatever they say, no matter what. But you want to try to reach the people who might be reachable. It's kind of tough to determine sometimes who might be reachable, but it's interesting that this doctor, Boutar, was being interviewed by, I don't know his name, one of the fake news guys, who said he was vaccinated, and so he asked the doctor, well, is this going to kill me because I got vaccinated? And he said, it's not designed to kill everyone immediately. This was sort of the taunt against the doctor, that, oh, if this were really true what you were saying, then people would be dropping like flies every day. And people are dying, but I mean, it's not programmed for everybody to die all at once. So the doctor said to him, check back with me in 3 years and we'll see how you're doing. Well, this fake news guy, he's dead now. You know, you can say it's a coincidence, you can say it's all made up fairy tales, you know, you can say whatever you want, but you know, it's sometimes things are just a little too coincidental to be coincidental. You know, and I think that's what we're seeing here. So anyway, that's one example of a very brave and honorable man, an army doctor. I believe it was in the army, medical doctor in the army, and who, you know, who paid the price. You know, who told the truth and paid the price. And there's a lot of people like that too. He's not the only one, and there's going to be a lot more people like that. But I think, you know, you should, in your minds, you should have a positive remembrance of this individual. So he pled the cause of the poor and the needy. You know, they talk about helping the widows and orphans. Well, the world population now is starting to feel like they're orphaned, like there are no anchors left. There are nothing that they can attach themselves to. And well. And so, okay, the rest of Proverbs 31 goes on to talk about really the divine feminine. What are the characteristics of the divine feminine? An accomplished woman who can find. Her value is far beyond rubies. Her husband's heart trusts in her. So divine masculine trusts divine feminine. This divine feminine is the source of truth. If now a woman can decide not to be plugged into the truth, that's for sure, but the divine feminine is wisdom. Her husband's heart trusts in her, and he lacks nothing valuable. She brings him good and not harm all the days of her life. She selects wool and flax, and her hands work willingly. So you're going to see here in this passage that she does look after her household, and if that's part of your calling, it's a beautiful thing. But she is also an entrepreneur. She's an entrepreneur who makes things and sells things. So that's an example of, you know, women doing other stuff. And, you know, this historical nonsense that we've been taught is that the only thing the woman can do is to take care of the household. It can be redeemed and a very good thing if that's your calling and that's really what you choose by free will. But when you're told this is the only thing you can do, there's something wrong with that. Yeah. And look at men running everything for centuries. How did that work out? And it's, you know, we are where we are, right? She brings him good and not harm all the days of her life. She selects wool and flax, and her hands work willingly. She is like merchant ships, bringing her sustenance from afar. Merchant ships bringing the sustenance from afar, like almost like an angel from heaven, right? And bringing her wisdom into the picture. She rises while it is still night and provides food for her household and portions for her servant girls. Okay, that was the ancient world. Okay, she considers a field and buys it, right? Investment. From the fruit of her hands she plants a vineyard. Labor. She girds herself with strength and invigorates her arms. So that doesn't mean she's bodybuilding in the gym. It's just that she's developing her physical strength, right? She discerns that her business is good. She discerns that her business is good. So this is, you know, she has a business and she runs it, and that's, and she does things that are good enough that they should be paid for, you know. And I was saying a few moments ago that my soul is not the expert on this, you know, what we were talking about, the divine counterparts, hieros gamos. That's not my soul. But, so I don't, you know, I'm not in a position to say you should pay me that for that because I'm an expert on that. But there are things that we are expert in, and you know, she's expert in this area. She builds things and makes things and sells things and runs a business, and so she's skilled in that. And I mean, in my case, if I had a business of you know, based on communications, on helping people get their message out to the right, you know, the right way to the right audience, that's something where already my level of knowledge is enough that it should be paid for. So if I had a business like that, it would be, if I decided to do pro bono, that would be one thing, but it would be something to be paid for, where if you know something and you want to communicate it to a certain audience, but maybe you don't know how to communicate it to a certain audience, you know, you lose them at some point. It's not up to me to tell you what your expertise is. You have the content knowledge. You're the expert of the content, but I could help you, you know, describe it in different ways, because you can describe content in different ways. The long version, the short version, the complicated version, the simplified version, depending on who your audience is. And this is what happens a lot of times, is that people know a subject backwards and forwards, but then when they try to explain it to a particular group of people, you know, the eyeballs glaze over because it's just not, it's not delivered in the way that that audience can understand. Now that's not altering the message or altering the truth, it's just finding a different way to communicate, and there are different ways of communication. And for me, that would be kind of an interesting business, and you know, should be paid for. But that's really what you're trying to do. If you have a business, you want to find something that you really are the expert on already. Like, you don't have to keep, you know, you're not learning the basics still from other people. You keep learning, of course, professional development, but you already have a mastery of that topic. You're not still learning basics about the topic. All right, so I'm going to finish up here. Her lamp never goes out at night. She extends her hands to the spindle, and her palm grasps the spinning wheel. So, you know, whatever your method is, whatever your device is to work, I mean, you devote yourself to that, you commit yourself to that. She spreads out her palms to the poor and extends her hands to the needy. See, the same principle. We try to advocate for and help the people who truly are needy. And in the process, you have to make sure that you're not being taken advantage of by scammers and, you know, people that are trying to just kind of mooch and sponge off of you. But I mean, there is certainly, one measure of success, I would say, is that not only that you can provide for yourself, provide for your family, but you are in a position where you can help others, serve humanity, help bring them to the mind of Christ, help them ascend spiritually, grow spiritually. That's a very good sign of what I would say success. And you know, some people, they have a little success and then their ego takes over and they kind of lose their way. She is not afraid of snow, for her whole household is clothed in scarlet wool. So it's got the warmth. She makes her own luxurious coverings. Her clothing is fine, linen and purple. Her husband is respected at the city gates. Respected at the city gates, see, because he has trusted his divine feminine wisdom, to live his life. So now he has a position of respect at the city gates when he sits among the elders of the land. She makes linen garments and sells them and supplies sashes to the merchants. Strength and dignity are her clothing. See, that's strength and dignity. And when you're telling someone they can only do one thing, and that's it, you're depriving them of their strength and dignity. The people should be empowered to do what it is that they are called to do. Strength and dignity. And everyone has that. How many people now have lost their strength and dignity because they've just kind of fainted, they've just kind of given up in the presence of all of these pressures that we've been going through the last few years in particular. Some people would just, they don't want to confront anything. They don't want to confront any darkness. They don't want to confront anything that's wrong with what's happening. They just hope that if they don't say anything, they will be left alone and somebody will somehow take care of them. And it's really wake up time. If you're ever going to wake up, I mean, now's your chance. Move forward, or don't complain about what's going to happen, because there's a steamroller coming, but you don't have to be part of it. If you're risen in the mind of Christ and you're rising up spiritually, you don't have to be part of that steamroller. You can live a life based on purpose and abundance and love and peace and joy, even in the midst of all of this chaos that's taking place. And it is unbelievable chaos. I mean, I think that this summer, get ready to see some very strange things happening. But good things will come of it if you really are in Christ. Strength and dignity are her clothing, and she laughs at the days to come. She opens her mouth with wisdom. A lesson of kindness is on her tongue, right? So you don't lecture people, right? You give them truth. The truth in love is another way of putting it. She watches over the affairs of her household and does not eat the bread of idleness. So get busy with something. Find something that you want to do, you're good at, you have some kind of a passion for, some kind of a calling for. Pray about that, what it would be. And do not eat the bread of idleness. Doesn't have to be a big thing, but serving people, helping people, sharing the love of God with people. Her children arise and bless her. Her husband also praises her. Many daughters have excelled, but you surpass them all, the divine feminine. Charm is deceitful and beauty is vain. We have plenty of people who are very charming and very vain and have a big ego, and if you look at the surface of their lives, look very successful, but it isn't real success. It's kind of fake success based on a fake system of illusion. And that's not the success that you want. You want the, if I could put it that way, spiritual success. You want to get to know God and Christ more and to use that to help humanity more. Right? Charm is deceitful and beauty is vain, but a woman who fears the Lord will be praised. Give her the fruit of her hands. Let her deeds be her praise at the gates, right? So you're bearing good fruit, right? And when people see that, they're more motivated to listen. If you're not bearing good fruit and you're trying to lecture them about something, people are not motivated to listen to that. So the divine feminine wisdom focuses on good fruit and gets the good fruit and gets the strength and the dignity and all of that. So I think I'll stop there on that, and thank you for listening, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye for now.